Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be talking about recognition.
It's true that recognition is a bit of a management paradox. People want to see their efforts rewarded in the same way as a company recognizes results. Unfortunately, there's no HR equivalent of a profit and loss account.
True. So, how do you recognize people's efforts? And what do you recognize? What is recognition? What's the story?
Well, if results are what help a company grow, then I suppose it's only natural that people be acknowledged for achieving those results, at least some sort of benchmark for a given job, for which people are paid a basic salary. So, we look at those results and we decide whether or not a person's performance meets required targets.
And when people hit their targets, they might be rewarded by a bonus, for example, which involves individual, variable pay. But there's more to it. We can also acknowledge people's capabilities.
Right, and we can also reward those capabilities with some form of financial compensation. It helps to see competence and capabilities as a sort of promise to achieve results in the future. This gives rise to grading, or job classifications, which reflects the level of skill and expertise needed to do a particular job.
So, we need to determine whether someone is starting out, growing or excelling in their job. That dictates where they sit within their pay grade.
Exactly. But, as we said at the beginning of this episode, people expect to be recognized for their efforts. It's only natural. But a company cannot pay someone for their efforts if they don't produce results.
True, we can't offer remuneration for effort alone, but that doesn't mean we can't offer recognition. In fact, it's vital to recognize things like effort and engagement, and that doesn't have to involve cold hard cash. Recognition can come in lots of ways, like giving constructive feedback, showing thanks, and rewarding employees for things they've done well.
Good point. Instead of always pointing the finger at people or being on their back to make sure they're doing their job, managers would do well to point out what employees are doing well, to congratulate them and encourage them. Obviously, that's no replacement for financial compensation, but it does serve as a form of reward, a non-monetary reward.
Then there's the fourth and final aspect of recognition, which is also a form of non-monetary reward, recognizing people for who they are. People.
That means acknowledging people not for what they do but for who they are. A human being who deserves respect. That brings us back to the basics. Working conditions and the simple rule of respect for others, starting with the campaign to tackle any sort of discrimination.
To recap, there are 4 ways to show a person recognition: for their results, their capabilities, their effort, and for who they are as a person. The first 2, results and capabilities, can lead to some sort of financial compensation, whereas the last 2, effort and human qualities, can be reflected in some form of non-monetary reward. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short. Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.